Hello and welcome back to the next episode of Back in a Mill with Jessica Marriott. I'm joined today by Jo, who is the founder and director of CosmediCheck. Today we're going to be going through some frequently asked questions, finding out a little bit more about Jo's journey and how we set up the business. And we really hope that you enjoy this episode. Hi Jo, thanks so much for coming in today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been really looking forward to this.
Same, so have I. It's been, because we've just met a couple of weeks ago at the International Aesthetic Awards. Yeah. Which was great. Loved it. It was such a good event. So I think, especially for me, kind of coming into the International Aesthetic Awards, I had no idea what you were kind of doing, what you were up to, and you've actually come up with such a revolutionary idea for the industry. And I think that the listeners are going to be really excited to learn about how you've done that and what kind of led you onto this path. So do you want to just start by telling me what is CosmediCheck?
Sure. So CosmediCheck was an idea 10 years in the making of having the best professionals available within the cosmetic industry, available to the public, anyone looking for treatments, but also to showcase professionals as well. Now, 3 years ago, it became very apparent that there was no legislation in place, there was nothing coming, no one knew where to turn from a professional point of view or a potential client or patient point of view. And that's really when the cogs started turning. And we really wanted to make a positive impact on the industry that we all love. There's currently so much negativity surrounding the cosmetic industry that we really wanted to involve the best of the best practitioners and then be able to showcase themselves to potential clients and patients. So CosmediCheck is a web directory review platform and safety platform that helps give potential patients and clients peace of mind that the professionals they are visiting are accredited, they're insured, and they are who they say they are.
Brilliant.
From a professional point of view, it gives professionals an in-depth profile where they can showcase that they're insured, they can show their qualifications, they can book patients in, they can really show an outline of who they are as a business and an individual, because we don't feel from our clinic ourselves that the search engines that are available, it doesn't really give enough information.
Yeah, there's a huge lack there, isn't there? And I think that's why what you've done is so special, because there's never been a platform before for anyone to say, this is what I have. I mean, do you provide them with a certificate? How would that work?
So as it stands at the moment, we have our professionals, they apply. So it's an application form. So it's not guaranteed membership.
Right.
Because we need to do vetting checks on them as a business from Companies House, from online reviews.
So it's very thorough then. So you go through, right.
We really need to go through a business and make sure they are who they say they are. So we look at online reviews across different platforms to make sure that they're getting positive feedback, there's no negativity surrounding the business. We make sure that they're insured, so we go to the insurers themselves, we check their treatment endorsements, we check the level of cover they've got.
Wow, that's so thorough.
Yeah, so the vetting process can take up to a week sometimes. So it's not just a tick, yes, you're on CosmediCheck, that's it. It really is, we scrutinise
everything,
certification, all that sort of stuff to help ensure consumer safety.
Of course, and that's what's so lacking in the industry is consumer safety, with obviously the lack of regulations at the moment that's really driving that kind of forward.
Yeah, it was quite funny in a way, because CosmediCheck was up and running before the news of the Department of Health and Social Care now bringing a licensing scheme in. So CosmediCheck was formed in 2022, where we really wanted to start making a positive impact. Over the sort of year, the whole of 2022, we were working on the platform and integrating different systems that would help professionals and the patients, because what we found from a clinic ourselves and from a patient or a client's point of view, as we have been ourselves, is it's okay having a platform that works for one or the other, but you need it to work for both. So we really needed to find a way of connecting both consumer and professional together is something that works for both.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Yeah, and it's a very clever idea. So, if, for example, someone were to come to you, for instance, and you check something that you weren't happy with,
Yeah.
do you give that person the chance to go away and kind of fix that issue if it's something that's fixable, or is that kind of it? Do you?
No, 100%. The whole point of CosmediCheck isn't to stand there and say, yes, you can come in or you can't. It's about educating professionals and patients, but especially from a professional application point of view. If there's something missing or we feel there's something that needs addressing, we go back to the professional and say, look, this isn't quite right, or we need further information, or we need to approve certification or the insurance. So it's never just a straight no. The aim of what we're doing is trying to provide a community so people can all reach the same level, whether you're medic, non-medic, you know, no matter what your background is, as long as you've done the adequate training and you've got a business in place. It's about helping those businesses achieve that standard for consumer safety.
Brilliant. So you're actually allowing medics and non-medics to enter onto the register together, and everyone is just checked under the same process, and they are checked, they get their certificate, and then they're kind of off and ready to go.
Yeah, so once an account is approved, they will then go live onto our directory. They then get a membership recognition certificate to show that they have passed our vetting check. They then get some other online material they can use to show that they are a member, they're a trusted professional with us. We're just in the process now of releasing some welcome packs as well, which have got some really good goodies in. I'm not going to spoil it, but for members signing up as a thank you, we're doing a welcome pack, and it's got a couple of nice little things.
That's really nice and exciting for them.
Yes, that's really good as well. But no, we do not discriminate against medic or non-medic. It's solely about consumer safety and making sure everyone is working to the same standard. As you'll probably be aware, there's been a lot of non-medic bashing over the years, which I find really distasteful for two reasons. One, because you can't tarnish a group of people and say you're all bad at what you do. You just can't.
No.
And from the other side of the fence, you can't then say that a midwife, take my hat off to, you know, all the medical professionals, you can't then say that they're going to be the best facial injector either. So there's both sides of the fence, and it's about getting that right level of, you know, artistry and qualification for both, because it's so easy to just say you're bad at what you do because of your background.
And that's what's really been happening at the moment, is I think people are being so targeted based on what their background is or what their group is. And this is probably one of the first places that I'm aware of that definitely has a platform that's all inclusive.
Yeah, the crazy thing is you look at most other industries or sectors throughout, you know, any career, there's always like a set of standards in place, and there's generally a governing body or a body in place to ensure that level. And as we all know, there currently isn't for what we do, which is the major problem for consumer safety, but also the professionals having to prove who they are. But then when you dive into the discrimination side of things, you've got medics discriminating against non-medics, but then even within the medic community, you've got medics discriminating against other medics who are training non-medics, or you've got doctors discriminating against nurses.
It's gone crazy.
It does seem to be a very toxic industry, which it's so sad, because we love this industry. We wouldn't want to do anything else.
And that's why we're in the industry, because we love to make people feel better. And it's like people forget that. I mean, almost like, well, why do you want to do this? Well, I actually want to make people feel better, and you're making me feel horrible.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think for anyone who is in the cosmetic sector, you will know, you know, not only the physical effects it can have, but the mental effects on people's lives, and that confidence boost in, for me especially, to be working in a female-dominated industry where 90% of businesses are female-led and entrepreneurs is amazing. And the last thing we want to see within this industry is discrimination against a group or a sex or anything like that, because the fact of the matter is that consumer safety is paramount. That's the reason we all do what
absolutely.
we do. Everything else needs to be left where it is, and we are working off the best of the best. They've got the insurance, they've got the qualifications to showcase that they are trusted professionals, you know, no matter their background. Exactly.
And I think when the regulation does eventually come into place, which I know at the moment no one really knows when, it is the big question mark. Yes. I think you kind of put in a lot of the work for them in a way, because you can kind of come along and say, well, we've already done these checks, and all of these practitioners on our platform, whether they're a medical or non-medical, we've already checked all these things. So that's actually really getting ahead of these regulation changes.
It's quite funny. We had a licensing scheme built into our system before any of this come about. So that's kind of sat in the wings ready to be implemented. There are a couple of organisations that are working with the Department of Health and Social Care currently, and they very much sway one side of the fence to the other, whereas we don't, which is really what we're trying to build that bridge to say, you know, we can implement what we've got to work with any licensing coming in, any legislation coming in. Our platform's there ready for it, you know, no matter what, and no matter what you've been doing previous, as long as the adequate training's there. Which is another part of the legislation we're waiting for, is working out what is that going to look like, and what is the level going to be. I think we've all got an idea of what it's going to be.
There's so many different opinions about what level and how everyone thinks.
And I think even the training which is being prompted to the front of the queue, even that still needs some work.
Yes, because there's a few missing elements, isn't there, in certain qualifications. And even though we have now got these regulated level 5, 6 and 7s, it's all very new. So there's always going to be things that we can add and make better. And I think because we're in the industry and we are at the forefront, we can see that a lot better than anyone's going to see it who sits in government, if you like, because they're not as close to it as we are.
Exactly that. Well, I think as a sector, we're very, very lucky because we've got a lady called Caroline Noakes, MP, who, this woman is an absolute powerhouse. She's the chair of the women's equality sector for female businesses, and she is the lady throughout lockdown who was fighting to get the industry back opened with some individuals in the industry, and she's very much in touch with the industry and what needs to happen. And I believe that with her input, it's going to help all of us throughout reach a fairer decision that works for everyone and the consumers.
Absolutely. So she's been a real good kind of pioneer for you guys then.
Yeah, she really has. And we were lucky enough to have an exclusive interview with her and cover some of these topics, which was, you know, it was really great to get a feel from her point of view, you know, from the Houses of Commons, how they see things and what we can expect as a sector. And I think having the conversations with her, it very much looks like the data that's been collected from the open consultation last year, which finished the 28th of October. There's going to be a wider consultation with that information. And then even with that, legislation can't just roll out. There needs to be things put in place. So there's a lot of time frames being thrown about, but I still think it's going to be a good 18 months,
couple of years,
maybe longer, before we see licensing in place.
I've said the same thing, and I think it's like when anything new is rolled out, they have to allow people time to work towards these things, because everyone that's already qualified, they're not just going to say you've got to stop overnight. They have to allow people time to work towards whatever it is that they're saying that everyone needs to do to be at the same platform and the same level.
And even though we're talking about client safety, which is the most paramount thing, from a government point of view, they're going to be looking at the fact that as an industry, we bring in £28.5 billion a year as an industry. So that's a lot of revenue to lose. So I can't see, you know, the Department of Health and Social Care just going, right, that's it, you're not going to be able to do this no more. There's going to have to be some stipulation.
Of course, and it brings in, this industry brings in a phenomenal amount of revenue.
Female-led businesses, which in itself is
amazing, because that's been so different in the past. It was always kind of the other way around. 100%. How do you feel, Joe, kind of being in such a dominant, like a female-dominant industry? Are you thriving? Are you enjoying it?
I love it. Honestly, I really do. I mean, I've worked in some very interesting sectors previously, which have generally been male-led. That's absolutely fine, but why put the men in charge when you can have the women?
So you have come from a male-led. Okay, so you've kind of seen it on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, I was in construction for over a decade, doing high-level developments, health and safety.
So it doesn't get more manly than that, does it?
No, before that, I was in the armed forces. I was in the army, so I've done some real hands-on sort of male-dominated
definitely.
careers. And in 2019, I started helping out just in a clinic after work, and I just fell in love with it instantly.
Oh, that's such a nice story.
Yeah, and it's funny because I didn't expect to be as involved in the industry as what I am now.
Yeah, if you could have looked back those years ago, would you ever think that you would be so far in as what you are?
I think when I told my friends, they were all like, "Is Joe having a mental moment? Like, what is happening?" And it was just the buzz of meeting new clients, seeing them come in happy, leaving even happier, and it's that you'll know yourself. That buzz that people get. It's very hard to beat.
It is. It's a very rewarding, challenging industry,
challenging.
But it does come with great rewards, especially when you've got those clients in that are feeling really nervous and you think, you know what, I know exactly what I need to do to make you feel and look better. And you're just so confident that you're going to be able to do it. And then they're so happy. And it's just, there's no more satisfaction than that, is there?
No, there's really not. And the clients that I really love are the ones who have maybe not had the best experience before, who then come in and then you just totally change their mindset on how they feel about having a procedure done. They're the ones where you're really like, this is why we do it all. It's for that buzz in. It doesn't really feel like work, this industry. If you get it right and you're making people feel better about themselves, you can't really call it work. It's really, so I really love that side of this industry, which is why I think collectively there's so many people who want to see the positive impact and changes happen. I've not spoken to one person who said, I really don't agree with licensing company. I think everyone agrees.
I haven't spoken to anyone that said that either, to be completely honest. And, unfortunately, the UK does carry this massive negative image of having cosmetic treatment. And I know that there was a report that was done by the British Association of Cosmetic Nurses, and they said that the UK was the worst place in the world to be injected. That is terrible. And this is why we need regulation and we need it soon so that we can change this.
I think I'm always a little bit dubious with the figures that come out, because I always think where the majority of the industry is still non-medic, I always feel like it's a bit of a non-medic bashing with any of the figures that come out, especially when they're saying there's more complications that appear to happen from non-medics than there are medics. Well, I get that, but then there's a lot more non-medics working in the industry than there are medics. So it's a very clever play.
There's a lot of variables, isn't there?
There really are, because there is good and bad on both sides of the fence. And even from the medic point of view, I know a lot of medics who they're still working in the NHS and then they're injecting, or they're trying to build a business on the side. So there are a lot of variables with these facts and figures. I personally think the UK as a whole, there's a lot of red tape, but I don't know a safer place, even though we haven't got the licensing yet, where there is so much red tape with products we have to buy, wholesalers we have to use. For those ones of us who are doing the training and got the qualifications and the insurance, we're all doing that off our own back at the moment. But we know from that point of view, there are a lot of boxes we have to tick to make sure that we are running the best service we possibly can for products,
absolutely,
and training.
And I think anyone that's not doing that, why are they in the industry?
They're the ones that we need to sort of make sure they're either coming up to the level that we all want to see, or maybe they're bowing out of the industry, because it's the few that are creating the problem.
And you have to have the drive and the ambition to want to do that, not just because you've got to, but because you care about the safety of your client.
100%. I get a little bit annoyed when I see these posts that come up from training academies earn £30,000 a month. It's all that sort of stuff. And I know it's advertising, and I know that, but at the same time, I think some people are coming to the industry and they've not really got the full picture.
They don't, and I think that's our responsibility to really say to them, there is money to be earned in the industry, of course, but it isn't all roses and it's not amazing, and you're not going to do that, especially not within that first couple of years, because there's a lot of reinvestment that needs to happen into the business, and you can do a great job, but you can only continue to do a great job if you continue to increase the service level, and that takes reinvestment.
It really does. And we looked at our training in our clinic a few months ago, and between us, our training's over £100,000 in a 10-year span, and it's a lot of money. And it's constant. Reinvesting in training. Insurance premiums are going up because the more you train in, the more your insurance goes up. So there's a lot of other things accompanied to what we do that I don't think people fully understand. And I really believe that when we get a licensing scheme and an accreditation, or there's a certain level of training and the providers providing that service, I think then that's when we will see the change, because at the moment people are doing these fast track courses or webinars, or the people they're visiting don't even have teaching qualifications,
and they're not checking either.
And they're not checking, and then they've been in the industry 5 minutes themselves, then they're opening up training academies. This is where
okay, so that is probably at the top of my 1, 2, 3 list of things that I'm just like, no, you can't just be in the industry and open a training academy, but then there isn't anyone as such telling them they can't do that. But it's that integrity to even, why would you even think that would be okay to do that?
But then I think I always try and keep a positive spin on things, because I don't like to get dragged into the negative. I think sometimes that people just aren't aware. And I think that sometimes people will go out their way to take advantage of the situation, but I think sometimes people don't, and they're not aware of the situation.
And I think Instagram doesn't help with this, because there's a lot of things going on Instagram, and we're seeing them, we're like, oh my God, that's so amazing, and everything looks so rosy and amazing on Instagram. But it's never really the reality, and we know that because we're so kind of long down the line with this. But I think for new people that are entering the industry, they overlook that.
Yeah, I think they really do. And we've kind of not only used that social media platform, but we do try and emphasise to people that as good as that platform and other platforms can be for advertising your business, it doesn't really give a true reflection of the business, which is why, as CosmediCheck, we are trying so hard to ensure that the checks are done, the feedback that professionals are receiving are genuine. It's not just a case of pop on and leave your mate 10 reviews, because that can cause issues as well. So it's really about having a balance that people have got. They've got peace of mind that the people that they're visiting, they are professionals and they are held accountable. And all the people who sign up to CosmediCheck, they sign up to a client and patient standard. And sometimes that might only be not to take advantage by charging your patient more than you need to through a treatment that you're saying they need, which they might not need. And it's that sort of stuff. That's what we want to see more of.
So you're running something that's quite. They have to make sure that they're meeting a standard from a professional point of view, but actually you're running something very ethical, because you're also giving them a lot of ethical guidance and push forward to say, are you also doing these things? So it's a real nice all-rounder.
Yeah, well, this is, I think when you've got a moral compass, like yourself, like I've got so many thousands of practitioners that don't get mentioned, or you don't hear of every day. It's those guys who are going, no, I'm not going to do that because my client doesn't need it. I have got my client's best interest at heart. I am only buying the best products from a reputable wholesaler. I'm not just buying cheap products online, and that's how I can charge so much less, because we all see it every day. We all see the lip filler £80 or whatever it is. And when you're in this industry, it can be very demoralising because, you know, you've got clinic overheads, you've got insurance, you've got
Yeah.
legal costs, you've got product costs. If you're talking about POMs, you've got prescription costs.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it. And I know for so many companies that they can't physically offer a service for that amount of money. And
No.
I think part of what we're trying to do at the minute is really emphasize to potential clients and patients that they need to be aware of the services they're booking with people they're booking with, because a lot of the time corners are being cut to make those prices so good. You really need to ask yourself sometimes, why are they that good?
How can it be true? And there's often a reason, isn't there?
Yeah, there often is, and sometimes they can be genuine. You know, model calls is a good one. If you're going to a reputable training academy or practitioner who's doing some training, model calls can be a great way to save some money on treatments. Yeah,
that is a nice way. And I think as well, it's just knowing that if you are seeing them cheaper prices, you're not having to question it. You can be like, there's a platform now or something out here that I can check on. And everything is legit because CosmediCheck have already put in all of that work to make sure.
Yeah. Another point of it, we didn't want to just make a platform where people are on there and then when they're on there, that's it. We do annual reviews and we do spot checks as well.
That's
so
good.
we check insurances on an annual basis and renew the treatment endorsements that are on there. We do spot checks as well.
That's great.
If someone uploads a treatment, we get a notification, so it doesn't just go onto their profile. We have to approve it.
And then you can check the insurance, make sure they've added it.
Make sure it's on their endorsement, because again, sometimes people won't do it out of spite, but they do some training, they then try and add it to CosmediCheck, but they haven't updated their insurance company, because it can then affect their prelims. But unfortunately, you need to be insured to be able to offer that service. So then we have to check that physically, and I drive my team wild, because I'm so on the ball with stuff like that as an injector myself, that for consumer safety we need to make sure that we are checking those things. So
absolutely,
from reviews, from treatments that are added, from insurance, all of these things we check to try and make sure that people have got peace of mind. But from a professional point of view, why would you not want to shout about being a trusted professional in the cosmetics industry?
Especially when that hasn't been an option.
Well, this is the thing. So at the minute, it's everyone's against everyone else, or that's how some people perceive it. I don't think it is. I think we're all one community. We're all trying to do the best we can for our clients. That's how I like to look at it. The more people that have had their company checked and they can prove they are the professionals they say they are, the better it is for everyone.
And that gives them peace of mind, because
100%.
I find this, especially with learners, they might, because they'll come to me with certificates and they think that the certificates are a certain level, and then they're not, and not everyone is qualified to know how to check certificates, because it can be quite tricky if you don't know what you're doing. And I think that's hard as well, because some people genuinely think that they have certain qualifications, and then you're the one that kind of has to be on the other end of the phone saying, well, actually, this isn't what you think it is. This is not, the qualification that you're telling me. And that's kind of heartbreaking for that person, because they've put trust into someone else. And it's a lot of pressure for the individual if they're not sure what they're doing and they're trusting in another person to advise and guide them.
Definitely that, Like I say, you are potentially you're putting your fate and your working life, your career in someone else's hands. And we've had occasions where it's almost don't shoot the messenger, because we've had to reject applications because of levels of training, because of online training. It's just not something that we morally believe is the way that training should be conducted. So even though we are waiting for legislation to come out, our moral compass still tells us that you can't do online training and be competent in completing treatment. So,
exactly. And I think with the online training aspects, a lot of people will take those online training thinking that they're insured. But if you actually look further into the insurance, a lot of the online training isn't actually covered because of the fact that they've not had the benefit of the live model, the live you can pick up so much on a live training because everything happens in real time. But on an online video, it's very they've selected the client and everything's filmed meticulously to make sure that it fits a program. But that's not real life.
No, it's not. And there's been there's been quite a lot of that recently with a certain fat dissolver injection that is sort of hit the market by storm.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people who have trained to use that product,
Yep.
or they believe they are trained to use that product, and a lot of insurance companies that will still not insure it, and some are only just insuring it now as a result of that, because people aren't aware, or they thought they've done the right training. So that's why we're kind of really excited to see fair legislation come out. Legislation that works for everyone with consumer safety in mind. You know,
and wouldn't it be nice by the time that does come out, that CosmediCheck has this massive, huge platform, and you know, this is everyone already. That's a massive part of the work done.
And for us already, we're so proud of where we are today and how far we've come. And you know, we've got over 400 accounts on CosmediCheck, both professional and patients.
That's great.
We've got huge partnerships with massive insurance companies because we rely on them to come back to us to approve policies and stuff. So all these companies that we are working with are all doing it for the same reason, for the good of the industry. And as much as CosmediCheck is a paid membership, we've kept it as low as possible to make sure that it's inclusive for everyone, and it's not discriminative against price. It's not you're just getting a registration number on a directory. We've included over 25 features for your profile. You know how much a business website can cost you. If you can't afford one of those straight off the bat, CosmediCheck's great because you can have all your key information on the platform without having to spend £5,000-10,000 on a website. So
that's brilliant. So you've done a lot of nice additions there to support.
To give as much value as we can,
really good.
From booking systems, from opening times, treatment galleries, contacts. We don't charge commission. It's just $7.99 a month, including VAT.
That's brilliant.
And a one-off £96 a year annual documentation fee, because like I say,
brilliant.
It can take us up to 7 days to check all the documentation. So it's £153 a year.
That's
and
really
you get all
good.
These features.
That's amazing.
Plus we feature all our professionals on our social media. So we really try and
they're getting a lot, and it's not just that they're paying this fee to be accepted. You're offering them a very good ongoing service 100%. and a support network.
That's what we really wanted to do, because as it stands at the minute, there's another social media platform where there's a lot of groups on there, and a lot of the groups are generally quite toxic, or people are normally a little bit nervous to speak out because they don't feel they've had the right training.
I've seen them.
And it's such a shame, because it can really make people go back inside their shell and think, oh, I'm not confident in this. I don't know where to turn to. And even though we haven't got a forum, because we purposely didn't want to have a sounding board for the toxicity, we wanted to create something where if people don't know the answers, or they do need some help with training or insurance, that we can help advise them as a 10-year established clinic. But before anything else, we're not sat in an ivory tower going, yes, we're this platform. We're just gonna look at your certificate to make sure you reach our level. We are, first and foremost, we have been a clinic for 10 years, which has led us to create this platform to help other individuals, both professional and patient. And we want to be able to offer these professionals the best training. We want to be able to provide them with training academies we recommend, who are offering the right level of qualification.
That's
insurance
brilliant.
Companies who are offering the right level of cover, because even stuff like that, there's certain insurance companies who offer £500,000 public liability, which sounds like a huge amount, but it really isn't. A lot of policies, a lot of the right policies are 1.5 million plus, and people are shopping around for the cheapest quotes. They're not aware of what they're covered for.
And they're not aware of how much cover they potentially need if an issue was to arise.
Exactly that. Because it's there for our safety and the client's safety, and sometimes stuff like that, people just don't know where to turn to. They don't know
and
where
it's difficult, isn't it? If you've not got that background and that 100%. Education on, okay, well, if this was to happen to me, how much do I need to be covered for? They will unfortunately kind of go for the cheapest option. But then, it's not always.
No, how many times do we hear a saying like it, or one very similar, if you pay for what you get, sort of thing. That's not always the case, but a lot of the time when we're talking about safety, it is. It kind of is.
Yeah.
And I think another point that isn't really spoken about a lot in this industry is not only is the industry 90% women, but it's a very insular industry. Unless you've got a big team around you, you're generally on your own. You're very much alone working. You're very much in a position where you don't know the answer to something, or you don't know how to ask someone, or you feel like you're the only person going through it. And as much as we are, an accreditation company and we're trying to make sure consumer safety is there, we don't want people to feel like they're by themselves. And this is why we're working with so many great companies to sort of show these businesses and these professionals that you're not alone. If you do need help, we can help.
And I think this is really up there on the list of importance, because I know so many girls and boys within this industry that are just, they do feel so alone, and they feel like they've got no one to go to, and they have these kind of issues that will come up, and they don't always feel confident to speak out because they feel like it undermines them, and then they don't say anything, and then it kind of snowballs, and that's where you see people exit the industry when really they had a great opportunity to continue.
It's the confidence. And I think for anyone specifically in aesthetics, I'd challenge anyone to tell me that when they've done lips, for example, and they've caused a bruise or a hematoma, they haven't thought it was a VO. And they've panicked for days.
That's happened to everyone, for sure.
People don't talk about it.
No, they don't, because they see it as negative.
They really do. And sometimes it might just be a second opinion of, if you haven't got someone in your network to go, could you just check this out? Do you think this is a VO? I've done a cap refill. Can you just give me a second opinion?
And that's good. That's good, because that's looking after the safety of your client again.
Really is.
And I work with another doctor who teaches with me actually in the academy, and he will inject lips. He's a doctor, and he will say, Jess, like, what do you think to this? And he's very much on a level. Like he teaches medics and non-medics, but it's just because we're either medic or non-medic doesn't mean we're seeing that complication any differently. Complications are the same.
100%.
So really interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's the point of what we are doing, and the reason why at the moment we have really got a lot of momentum is people are seeing that we're trying to build a community together. We're not trying to be the ones standing there going, you need to do this, you need to do that. We just want to create a community where we can help both sides of the fence, both professional and patient, find the best practitioners local to them. I mean, you can go on CosmediCheck and search for a specific procedure in 10 seconds. So
can you do that by area, or is that...
So you've got two options on there. You can either search for a specific professional so you can search to make sure they're on our register, or you can type in specialist treatment and then the specifics, and then you can pick a location and it will find the nearest to you. So
brilliant.
That's what we want
great
to do, is sort of give people the options. And sometimes it's not always the closest to the best, but it will show you specialists. So you might think, I really want this done, and they've got really good reviews, so I'm prepared to travel an extra 10 miles because they've got really good reviews. You know what I mean?
That's great. Even if you're new to an area, or you're not sure, or you've gone somewhere away and you think, I just need, because we all need bits and bobs doing from time to time.
We're also self-critical, aren't we? And the reason why as well on CosmediCheck, it's not just cosmetics, we've also introduced medical. So at the minute we've got 167 treatments available, which is an ever-growing list, but we check with the treatments that we are approving to make sure that they work with our ethics as an industry. But cosmetic surgery, you've got cosmetic dentistry on there to really help people find,
so it's really broad then.
We've really tried to keep it inclusive to make sure that anyone looking for cosmetic or medical procedures, there's one place they can go and look.
Brilliant.
So that was always the dream. And
great.
Yeah.
So for any clients that might be watching this podcast today, what advice would you give them and for choosing a good practitioner?
So I would say, from my moral compass, I would always reach out to a company first and see their sort of response, and then you should always have a consultation, I believe. So if you're ever considering any cosmetic or medical services, treatments, procedures, you should be invited in for a consultation. So I would say number one, as a client, that should be your first step. Is you're reaching out to a company. It's normally a paid deposit because the practitioner has to book you in, so they have to allocate their time. So it's normally, a consultation fee, but you should be offered a consultation to discuss your wants and needs. Then you should be offered the opportunity to go away, not pressured into having a procedure. You should be sort of the mindset that, great, I've come in and seen these people, now I'm going to go away and think about it.
Yeah.
So that should always be the sort of second thing, is you're not being forced into, oh, well, if you book today, you can save 10% or this, that, and the other. It really should be a decision that you've considered, not just a whim, oh, I'm going to go in and have.
Super important, because you can get carried away. I think especially if you do come into a clinic and you're excited because you want to look better and you want to have something done, this treatment. But if you do rush that and you've had a doubt, you can't go. You can dissolve it and go back, but that can become very stressful when it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And the fact that you are having injectables within your face, you shouldn't be deciding on the spot if you've not already made that decision yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we really, really promote on CosmediCheck. We look at feedback from a professional and as a client. We look at procedures from a professional and as a client, because as much as you're entrusting a professional as a client, and it's their responsibility for them to make you look and feel the way you want to look, it's also your responsibility, because you're entrusting them. If you've got any red flags when you go and visit a clinic or a professional, you need to walk away, or you need to really consider if you've taken their advice on. I've heard some crazy stuff over the years of people wanting to go and get better skincare advice, and then they've come out with all these different treatments that they didn't necessarily want, have regretted. It's prevented them from leaving the house because they've hated the way they've looked afterwards. So I think first and foremost needs to be, when you're booking in, you need consultation. You need to then go away and think about everything you've been told. Sometimes you're offered a screenshot, or you might be given your consultation notes or something like that. Sometimes you might not, but depending on the individual business. So you need to really go and think about the procedure.
And I think it's nice to meet the practitioner as
100%.
well, because you can really get a vibe for how they are
100%.
and their ethics as well. So it's not just about something looking great from a social media platform, Instagram, maybe they've seen nice photographs. It's important that they feel like they have a connection with the practitioner that's going to be performing the treatment.
I think as a client, first thing always needs to be, when you're booking in, be invited in for a consultation. Or if you're not invited in for a consultation and you're just booked straight in, sometimes when companies use online booking systems, you don't get the option. I think it's so important to make sure you have a consultation. That's got to be paramount.
I agree with you.
If you leave them with any sort of red flags or doubt, follow up. You don't have to book there and then and go, right, okay, well, I'm not sure, but I'm still going to go ahead, because half the time that can be an issue. And we know as practitioners, sometimes when you're trying to help a client look and feel better about themselves, you've got to manage their expectations. And I think as a client, you need to understand your expectations as well.
Absolutely. And I think this is a massive stumbling block for a lot of people, because they will expect things maybe that aren't realistic because of things like Instagram and because of things like Photoshop and editing. We all know it goes off. And it's just bringing the expectation to a level that's realistic.
I always feel quite sorry for celebrities who are always posted in the papers, magazines, of look what they've had done.
It's
now.
Awful, isn't it?
It is awful, and it's really degrading. But not only from a professional point of view, because you always see, look what they've done to their face. Well, I'm always on the fence with that, because the professional's done that to them. And I think the moral compass is, managing expectations to say, as a professional, I'm not comfortable doing that
Mm.
because it's going to impact my work, how you look, and I
Yeah.
don't think that's
Yeah.
an option.
Because if they leave with a bad job, your name's all over that.
100% is. But I think as a potential client or patient, it's your responsibility to know that. I mean, lip fillers are a huge one at the minute, isn't it? It really is. And, you know, some clients know themselves very well. You know, if you've got a little petite face, having this great whopping set of lips on you,
it's not always going to suit you. Yeah.
It's not always going to suit you. Everyone's anatomy is different. Everyone's anatomy reacts different to the amount of product.
Definitely.
I think that's got to be the key factor of looking into any procedure, is really weighing up the pros and cons of it before you book in to have a treatment.
And I think a lot of clients, they don't necessarily know what will suit them.
No.
So they'll see a beautiful girl on Instagram and say, oh, I really like how this girl's lips are, but she could be completely different to the girl that you've got in front of you.
100%.
And then it's like, okay, I understand that she looks amazing like this, but you beautiful in your own way. And actually, if you kind of do what suits this girl, you might not look as good as you did before you had anything done.
I heard a really good saying the other day, and it's probably been around for ages, but I only heard it the other day.
Okay, let's see.
So you probably
Tweakment.
know tweakment.
Yeah.
I'd not heard of that before, and I really liked it because
it's nice,
that really emphasises tweaks to you.
Yeah. 100% to the individual.
It's tweaks, and I really love that because I thought that is what we should be doing, all of us collectively. It shouldn't be, I can see my cheekbones because I've had so much filler in.
No one should leave looking completely different. They should look like them, but just an improved version.
And feel better. And that improvement might be physically or mentally, but it's about them feeling better about themselves, not worse. So I think that's a really good terminology that I think people, even if they're not saying it, that's what they should be looking at from a patient client point of view and a professional. It's about tweaking, not changing.
Absolutely. And I think when you are changing and it's so significant and obvious, that's when the trolling starts, and that's 100%. When people kind of get more targeted. I had a lady on the podcast a week ago, and she'd been on Love Island, and she'd gone into Love Island with the big lips, and she really got trolled badly, and it affects her to this day because she can never escape her. And you know, especially for people that are in the public eye, for them to try and get away from that, it's impossible, because the Daily Mail have posted it, and it's in the Sun, and it's on Instagram, and it's on Google. Like, it can be so damaging having bad work done and then also kind of being picked on for it publicly.
I think it's really distasteful when anyone has got the audacity to comment on someone else's look or how they're going to make them feel. And I think for a lot of us in the industry, we do things to help people with their physical and mental. I've heard, you know, stories of professionals, if you can call them that, saying, I really think you need, or you could really do with.
See, you just
and
can't.
Not, if that's your mindset, you shouldn't be in this industry.
No.
That's my personal point
I
of view,
agree. And
because it's not your right, or it's not my right to tell someone what's
it's really not. And even for me with consultations, if someone will say to me, what do you think I need doing? And I won't say, well, I think you need this. I'll say to them, well, what are you feeling conscious about? You know, what do you think is an area that's making you not feel confident? I would never say, okay, well, I think this and that, because, you know, you need to get to know the person, understand where their mindset is with it, and give some suggestions that are going to make them, like you said, feel better
100%.
Without changing them.
Yeah, and I think we're all so self-critical of ourselves.
Anyway. Yeah.
That when we're considering tweakments, we already know from our point of view that it's probably an area we're a little bit insecure about, or it's just something we want to improve on slightly. So I don't understand these professionals who then see that as an opportunity to go, I think you could deal with, or you should have. So I think that's another really important one as a client, is if you're being advised in that capacity, to me that's a red flag, because
I agree.
You should be being told what you need. You know, a true professional should be listening to what you're saying on the consultation, and then maybe coming up with a treatment plan or you know,
And a
advising
staggered
accordingly.
treatment plan,
Yeah,
not just we're going to do 7 mil and we're going to do it all today.
These are, you know, you said earlier about your top 3 things that annoy you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my top 2 has got to be the amount. So filler is a massive one for me, and it really does get my goat, because you see it 1.1 mil for whatever. The problem I've got with this advertising is 1.1 mil is going to look very different on you to it is me, because everyone's anatomy is so different. So where everyone is using this terminology of the amount so much, clients come in and say, I want a mil, I want half a mil. But until you've started the procedure yourself, you don't know how much their body is going to use up that amount. So sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less.
Absolutely, because sometimes the tissue space, especially within a lip, the tissue space can be quite generous, and you can think, okay, I have loads of tissue space here to work with, but you might get another client who doesn't have a lot of tissue space at all, and actually you don't want to overstretch that lip and cause them, I don't know, migration, secondary problems. So it is difficult to say, okay, we're going to exactly do this. And actually, I think as practitioners, it's important for us to say, we can go for the 1 mil syringe, but if I think that you only need 0.8 or 0.9, then that's what we're going to do, and have them on board with that as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because I've had it myself where I've had clients come in with their friends, and their friends sat watching and gone, oh, she really wants her lips like mine, I've had this amount. And that's where I always sort of, from a professional point, you say, look, take that on board. However, your anatomy is totally different. So what you've got is going to be totally different on her. I understand the look you want. That's fine. Yeah. But the amount is not going to be the same. You know? No. So I think that's really important as well as a client to understand that it's not your fault that you've understood this terminology. And so many companies advertise per the amount. Yeah. But I really think it's quite misleading, because then clients are drawn to the amount, whereas it needs to be more about the tweakment and the look.
Yes, and the overall result. Yeah.
So it's about managing expectations. And I think a lot of the time when you see, especially in aesthetics, especially with filler, I think from my point of view, I see a lot of the bad is as a result of the amount. Yeah. So I want 4 mil in my cheeks. Well, yeah. Do you know what I mean, though?
Absolutely.
I think that's quite a basis,
and you've got to be able to turn those clients away and be confident that you say, you know, I'm not going to do this. 100%. And they'll say, well, you know, I'm going to pay you this money. No, well, I don't want the money, because I don't want to be as, one, you know, in 5 years' time, I'd hate for you to look back and realise what you actually look like and then blame me. 100%. You don't want to kind of feel like you're going to make someone else a target for other people and they don't know. That's horrible as well. 100%. And, you know, putting that amount in is not safe.
No, it's not. And I think this is where we get down to the expert sort of point of view again, because as we know, there's different techniques, there's different methods, there's different needles. You can have bolus technique, you can have cannula. You know, there's a lot of advanced techniques that are going to give you a very different desired look, one to the other.
Whether it's one amount or another.
Yeah. So I think that's another basis. And I'm not saying that as a client you need to know the ins and outs of that. I just think you need to be very mindful that, say you found a company that you like the look of, you've seen their Instagram profile, you have that consultation, you tell them what you would like improving, not changing, I would say more improving. Then hopefully by the day of the treatment, you and your practitioner both know your desired one. Because the fear for a lot of people that I've seen in clinic over the years is they dread looking in the mirror directly straight after they've had the treatment, because they're thinking, oh my God, what am I going to look like?
Am I going to look like a different person?
And I've had it myself, so I can sit here and say that, because I've had treatments and I've thought, how am I going to look after that? And it's that worry, it's that fear. You know,
I feel like I have that a lot more with men than I do women.
Yeah.
Honestly, really? I think in my clinic, I get a lot more men that are more nervous about how they're going to look. And I think it's because men are under that stigma a little bit still, that it's quite a womanly thing to do. And I think I'm still really working on the guys to say, you know, a lot more men are doing this, but they might not shout about it as much as women do. And they kind of come in here and they want to sit in the corner and hide away from everyone in the reception because they feel a certain way about being.
I would say 9 out of 10 guys we get into our clinic will always come in with their partner first, so they can scope it out a little bit. Generally, they won't book in themselves unless it's probably hair loss. 9 times out of 10, they come in and have a look round, and see what the vibe is.
Yeah, they're just weighing everything up.
Yeah, they do. And I can't just solely say that's men. Some of our clients do it with their friends. They come in with their friends. Because it's that. And that to me as a client, that's what the consultation's for. That's what the treatment's for. In some places you go, the practitioner might not want a friend in the treatment room. You have to take that on board. Some clinics don't. But I think it's just having that understanding that you don't regret the treatment. And I think to help prevent that, it really is consultation, really understand as a client what you're asking for. And it is attainable and it is a tweakment, and you're not asking your practitioner to go above and beyond to make you look totally different. Because what tends to happen with that is then the practitioner's on the back foot, because the client's thinking, well, that's not how I want to look.
And then they're constantly kind of going for more. And then it's just keeping control of that, because people get so filler blind.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's a great terminology.
Yeah,
and
they
the
get
befores
filler
and
blinds.
afters are always a great representation of that.
Yeah.
We have clients who get the filler blindness, and they go, I think I need more of this or that. And you think, well, you're not due yet. And then you look at their befores and afters and you send it back to them and say, look, at the moment, we feel this is enough. And then they go, oh, actually, I forgot it was like that before.
They do forget. And they also get used to how their lips are because they've had them for a while. So they think, oh, okay, this isn't any different. And they're looking for that change. But actually, they've already had the change. So that's a really another great reason to make sure that you do take your client before and afters, because it can be useful to show them actually how far they have come in the journey.
Definitely. And this is another reason why in more recent years, we don't like to promote 6-point lifts, 8-point lifts. I know they look fantastic. I know a lot of people have them. What we found over the years is when you're changing that much on your face in one time, it takes your brain a while to get used to all the different changes.
Yes.
So it can almost give not a negative, but it can almost make the client think, wow, I look so different.
Yeah, because they've had so many different areas.
One time. So, like you rightly said earlier, treatment plans are great. So that's another good one. If there's a couple of treatments you're looking for, I would definitely suggest a treatment plan is the way to do that, because then you can do it gradually.
Yeah, and you can see how that's going to look.
Yeah,
you can say, okay, I know. Yeah, and that's a lot more reassuring than just going in and feeling like, oh my gosh, I look so different. And I think looking different fits well for certain clients, because they might have had a lot of cosmetic work and they're used to looking different. But particularly for clients that aren't used to it or that haven't had a lot of stuff done,
I think it alleviates a lot of issues. I mean, we've, like every company does at times, you get the clients who then message you, is this okay? Is that okay? I've not got, the swelling's not settled yet. That is so common. It's so normal. And I think the other part of client recommendations is the aftercare. So after that procedure is that your client feels comfortable. They don't have any immediate questions or concerns. You've given them aftercare advice that might be in paper format, it might be email. They've got something to go away with that they can reference if they feel, I've still got swelling. I mean, you'll know as well as I do, whenever we're talking about bone filler, so cheeks, jaw, chin, generally I would say it's more 21 to 30 days settlement than it is somewhere like marionettes or nasos or lips, which the swelling tends to subside between 2 and 7 days. So I think it's having that understanding as a client that, if you've got a wedding next week and you don't want to be bruised, I would say probably wait till after the wedding or book in advance. You need to prepare,
and you can never predict how bad someone's going to swell or bruise.
100%. I mean, we will know there's certain prescription medicines that can make you more susceptible to hematomas. Garlic's a really good one for bringing out bruising because it thins the blood. So people generally bruise more. Dehydration can be another one. Drinking alcohol, smoking, all of these things that we do as humans I think it's important for a client to have that understanding that, yeah, right, it might only be lip filler, for example, but if you're planning to go out Saturday night and drink,
yeah.
it's not
This is such
advisable.
a
It's
big thing
not-
with us, because we will advise them not to drink, and they'll come in and I say, did you have a drink? No, I didn't have a drink, Jess. I'm like, okay, perfect. Start injecting the
You can
lips.
tell the needle
They're
grabs straight
bleeding
onto the skin.
everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you sure you didn't
Yeah.
have a drink? No.
Yeah.
And then, are you sure?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I
Yeah.
had 2 wines.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think as a practitioner, we're not turning around and saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, but we are just trying to give you the best possible advice for the best possible aftercare, for the best possible results.
Yeah.
So if you are considering a treatment, me for example, I'm terrible at hydrating. I don't really like water. I like squash or have fizzy drinks. They get me through the day. If I'm planning to have upper sculpt or some filler work, I will make sure I hydrate before,
because you know the importance.
Because I know the importance. I don't want the needle grabbing onto my skin. I don't want to be bleeding.
Yeah.
You know, I want the best possible results because I'm spending money on it. So I'm quite regimented with it. And I think as a client, you need to have that understanding that there was a terminology used, lunchtime procedure, I saw in a paper the other month, and it really annoyed me because I don't think any procedure should be classed as a lunchtime procedure that you can leave work, nip off and have it done and back. Okay, from a time frame point of view, you can. We know that. Yeah. But when you're looking at having a procedure done,
you have to plan around it.
You can't, just nip off for half an hour. And I think that's where...
And that's where you might not get the most optimum result because you've not followed everything.
And then it comes back to the professional.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a big part of it. And that's part of what we're trying to do with CosmediCheck is really give that advice out. We do advice blogs. We've got information throughout our platform with stuff like that because you do need to prepare. You can't just go as a lunchtime procedure. I'm going to go off, nip and have this, and then I'm going to Marbella next week and we'll be sat in the sun drinking for a week. Do you know what I mean? So I think as much as it is down to a professional to advise, I know if someone come into me and said, Joe, I'm going away next week and they've just had their brows done, I would be saying I would reschedule when you're back. Yeah. And it's having that experience and that knowledge to be able to advise them that correctly. But I really think that with how much information is available to us all now with, the internet, that patients and potential clients need to have a bit more of an understanding. Yes, it's down to the professional to know what they should be doing, but I think in every aspect we need to be arming ourselves with the right information. So making sure we're getting a consultation, making sure we're happy with the service that's going to be provided, booking in for the service. It might be if you're having threads or something more invasive, having the time off afterwards. You can't just go straight back to work. No. There's certain treatments now which I think are so invasive that probably shouldn't just be done anywhere currently, which hopefully licensing will change. Yeah. But because their classes are lunchtime procedure, people having them and then they're having adverse effects and side effects and and that does come back to the professional in the end. Does. And rightly so in some respects. But in other respects, as the client or patient, you need to be taking it serious enough that you understand you need the downtime, you need to listen to the aftercare advice. Yeah, because we can only handle so much in the clinic and then the rest 100%. Is very much up to them. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think that's really important. So as a client, they're the things I would be looking at is, booking systems. A lot of companies use them now, but if you're not offered a consultation or there's not one on the booking system, phone up. Generally, any accredited business, any registered business, they've got a phone number, they've got an email. Yeah. I'd like a consultation first, please, to discuss some tweakments or some changes or these little things I'd like to work on. Go in, have your consultation, go away and think about it. Allow yourself adequate time after your treatment that you can follow the aftercare advice. So I'd say that's got to be a massive one for me. That would be my advice. Brilliant. So what are your views with current regulation at the moment within the UK? So are we talking what's pending, what was proposed? So with the traffic light system or what's currently in place?
Traffic light system.
Right.
Mm.
Traffic light system, as a non-medic, not that I am biased, I just think the traffic light system that was proposed, whoever came up with it has never injected in their life personally. And I know that's going to ruffle some feathers, but I totally disagree with some of it. I agree with some of the other stuff. You know, the CQC practice for invasive treatment, totally agree with.
Yeah,
should be.
Definitely.
You know, so there was some stuff on the traffic light system I thought that's just not going to work. There was some other things I thought that's a great idea, and I think that was the whole point of the open consultation, was to get that sort of feedback.
Yeah.
There was a section in there about having medical professionals overseeing procedures. I don't personally see how that would ever work. The NHS is stretched as it is. You know, all the guys who are medics, you know, they're overworked, underpaid. I don't see how they are then going to be able to do that as well. And I don't see a necessity for that, providing the right qualifications, insurance, you know, they're all in place.
Yeah.
Everyone's on a level playing field, so that shouldn't be a necessity.
I completely agree.
However, agree with some of the red ones, like say the CQC registered clinic.
Absolutely, a must have.
Yeah, I really think when we're talking about invasive treatments where you're susceptible to infections, I really think that some of these things do need to be taken off. And I know some people won't like that because they might have trained in it. However, when we're looking at consumer safety, I heard this horrendous story about someone having quite invasive PDO threads, but cogs, so not monos, cogs.
Right.
And it was conducted at a dining room table with a child present at that table.
What?
With pets running round.
Oh my
gosh. I was mortified. And this is where then, as an industry, anyone who's just heard what I've just said then should be going,
sinks.
That should not be happening. That on all levels should not be happening. So then
Wow.
I think from that point of view, invasive treatments need to be in a regulated clinic. I don't believe they should be allowed to be performed in a
absolutely
mobile
no
in a home clinic, unless it is a clinic space. I think one thing that I've not seen any of in the regulations, because I don't know how they would be able to police it, but it's almost spot checks, I believe, need to be implemented for clinics. I mean, you know, for the tattooing side of things, depending on the borough or the area you're in, we have local tattoo licenses. We've got one for our cosmetic and medical tattooing. However, it's under the General Tattoo Act.
Yeah.
So it's not specific to aesthetics or semi-permanent or permanent makeup. So I think with the licensing, if it's going to come in and it's going to be, right, you need to have this license, you've got to pay this amount of money for this license. For it not to be a mockery, I think there almost needs to be visits to clinics. Yeah. Because I don't see how it's going to improve the industry if you're saying, right, there's now a licensing scheme, you've all got to pay however much it is for, to then go, right, you've got to pay for that, but we're not actually going to look any more into it. I just don't know how, with government resources, that could ever be a thing. So it might be a third-party company. Yeah. They might not even be looking into that. But I just think, from my moral compass, you can't, or as an industry, we can't say, right, you've got to have this license, you've got to have this level of training, which then encompasses that insurance. When this licensing comes in, I'd imagine the insurance will probably go up as a result. Yeah. You can't then not have inspections, or you can't have
absolutely not.
You know, checks. I mean, in the food industry, restaurants, they have a hygiene rating, so they have an inspection. It should be no different.
Yeah. And then it's not like we have to, they almost don't want to make it so that people can prepare and be ready for inspections, because that's not the point of it. No. The point of it is that you are just operating as you should be, and that actually anyone can walk in at any one time and that everything's under control. You've not got children running around, obviously no under 18s in the clinic. It's just small things like that.
To me, it's almost a little bit mind-blowing, because you go into the hospitality sector, like say there, they have food ratings, they have hygiene checks. You go into the construction industry, you have health and safety audits and checks from a third party company. They're just two sectors that I know about. I'd imagine most sectors,
most sectors do have,
you have some sort of auditing system, and I think it's needed. And I think for us all to be on board as one community and with the seriousness of what can go wrong, I think this is something that needs to be looked at. I think anyone who is the true professional they say they are would welcome an inspection tomorrow.
Because you wouldn't do anything any different anyway.
So
it's very like you said, they're just two industries that you've thought about on the spot. It's very, you shouldn't be in this industry and not have that 100%. Because
well, this is the thing, and this is why sometimes I can see from the medic point of view where they get a little bit annoyed because they have to be
do have to,
they've got their PIN. Totally get that, and that's phenomenal. That then I think needs to be flipped over for the level playing field where this licensing works like a PIN system. You can lose your license.
And then it's the same for everybody.
So it's the same for everyone. And it might not be CQC, it might be someone else, but there almost needs to be something very similar in place.
Because that's giving them an excuse at the moment to kind of say, well, actually, as medics, we lose this, but as non-medics, you don't. So
and I totally get that. And as a non-medic myself, I welcome it. I wouldn't have any issues with that. The thing that I don't know how would work, because it would rely on resources again, is when we had our inspection for our local tattoo and piercing permit, the local council come out, they do a great job, but they're overworked. So the lady who came out to see us, not only does she do pet stores, she does pubs.
So it's not just for either sector.
So it's not specific.
Right.
So the lady we had out, she was a lovely lady, but she didn't really have any specifics of what we needed to have in place. So we were sort of advising on what we thought and deemed acceptable with the hard flooring, so it can be wiped down, the one-time use, the clinical waste, the sink access, all of that sort of stuff that we as professionals have as standard. There needs to almost be a regulation of, you need to have this, you need to have this needs to be in place. And then anyone looking to open a clinic who has got the right training and the insurance, then they know what they're working to. Because I feel at the minute there's so many grey areas, and the insurance companies get a bashing. And I don't disagree with all of it, but there's some really good insurance companies who want to make a difference. And I think currently, whilst there's no legislation in place and there's so many grey areas, we're kind of turning around to these companies and going, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I can speak from first-hand experience that I've had those questions with insurance companies, and they've turned around and said, well, Joe, we haven't got anything to go off at the moment, so it's quite difficult for us.
Because everyone's almost trying to navigate their own paths and their own journeys without any set written rules.
And this is why CosmediCheck works, because at the moment there are home clinics in place, there are mobile clinics in place. Mobile clinics, we don't take on currently. People just go around people's houses because we can't guarantee the hygiene. For home clinics, we collate photographic evidence of the treatment space they're working out of, which seems quite invasive, but at the same time, it's necessary to make sure that people aren't sat at dining room tables.
And that there's no one's dog running around when you...
So it's stuff like that, which I feel like with the traffic light system, the consultation's got to be expanded, and they've got to look into more of those sort of avenues of, we're all welcoming licensing, you're going to charge us all for the licensing, so with the money you're going to charge us, are you going to implement these sort of things? Because that's what's needed, not just a government-backed scheme.
No, and I think that's what we need to be pushing for. We need to be pushing to say, okay, we're happy with this because this is a positive change for the industry, but what are you going to give back to the industry that's going to help us all 100%. To do good jobs?
And even if that's a training aspect, I mean, I know a lot of people are doing the additional training, level 5 and level 7 now, that they believe is coming in. And yes, on paper, it looks like that's going to be the one That's used because it's set up for it.
And it's the only regulated.
It's the only regulated off-hole. But what if it's not?
Yeah.
When people have spent all this money on this training.
Yeah. There's no one knows, and this is the
with
issue.
The licensing, it almost needs to be, there needs to be a government-backed scheme, I would say.
Yeah.
Like with nurses, I know a lot of nurses, when they've worked in the NHS at a certain time, they went from diploma to degree, they swapped over for their qualifications. It almost needs to be treated very similar. If you want these licenses and stipulations put in place and the training put in place, and we're going to be charged for a licensing scheme, then that money needs to go back into the industry, because we know it's a £28 billion industry. The government aren't going to want to lose the revenue from that.
No.
But any revenue generated within the industry needs to go back into the industry.
Absolutely.
That's how I currently stand with the the regulations and the pending licensing. Is I'm all for it.
Yeah.
However, there are two organisations working with the Department of Health and Social Care, and they are openly both pro-medic.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't help the industry to have that outlook.
No.
And we're not biased. And I think gone are the days of discriminating against groups of people in general in life. And there's a lot of non-medic bashing, which is really distasteful. And I think we're all in this industry for the same reason.
Yeah.
No matter what your past career, if you are working to the level you should be, that stuff needs to stop. And it needs to be, we're all working to that level.
And we're all working to the same goal. We want to make people feel good, look good.
I mean, my point with that is, what strain does that put on our industry if people are still working for the NHS and then they've got their own private clinics, and they can earn more money in their private clinics
than they can at the NHS,
working 60, 70 hours a week in the NHS? Some might not, but it all puts pressure.
It does put a huge strain onto the NHS.
So I think that needs to be looked at as well. I think the level playing field for consumer safety is paramount.
I don't think this has been taken very seriously at the moment, particularly with the NHS, because we're already under so much pressure within that sector anyway, without adding on to it because now obviously, as we know, a lot of people that are medic are doing injectables as well as, so there's not enough time being allocated to those areas. And there was already strain anyway before this became such a big industry.
Yeah, exactly. I think depending on who you talk to as an individual, you've either got ex-NHS staff who are fully in cosmetics now, have got their own clinics, love it, and when you speak to some of them, they wouldn't ever go back. Then you've got some medics who they do part-time whilst they're trying to build their client base, or it's just a bit of pocket money on the side. I think what people need to understand from a non-medic point of view, which isn't really spoken about enough, is if we're not working, we haven't got a roof over our head. It's not a part-time thing for us. This is our career that we pay our bills with, we pay our tax with, we,
support our families. This is everything.
This is everything. We're not dipping our toes into an industry.
No, and we also don't have anything else to go back to if the worst were to happen and it would never happen, but it made to be stopped. For example, the medics do have the opportunity to go back into those sectors and those jobs, but for us, this is what's keeping, like you said, a roof over our heads. This is our careers.
I think there needs to almost be a little bit of consideration for that, especially for people who've been in the industry a while. Maybe there should be some sort of assessment or fast track or something in place. I think the real turning point was COVID, which was horrendous for all of us. Really, really was, and
it brought a lot of light to what was going off, and
and it's almost like it's not spoken about now. But I know so many cosmetic businesses that have gone out of business, or they've got these huge loans over their head now, or grants they've got to pay back as a result. I personally think that the level of poor training and poor injecting came into the industry during COVID and after it, because of the online training, because of the webinars and the no models. It become easy
because everything just ramped up.
It became easy to do an online webinar, and these companies charge loads of money just for an online course. They weren't having to host, they weren't having to get models in or use product. And I think with the licensing and legislation, anyone who's come into the industry since COVID, this is going to ruffle some feathers, but I believe that from COVID onwards, this needs to be looked at in a little bit more detail to the level of training. And because, like we touched on earlier with training providers, there's a lot of in-house certification going out there which hold no accreditation anywhere.
No.
So they can't really be deemed as passed or...
Because it's not been checked against any standard. It's just someone's created a qualification themselves.
100%.
But anyone can do that.
Microsoft Word
and then printed it on a printer. And this is what I'm always saying. Even though you have certificates and you think that you might have done the work that you needed to, has that been checked against a framework? Has that got an accredited number? Is it with an awarding body? And a lot of them will just look at you going out because they don't have a clue.
And I think that's why that's so important with the legislation, that we have an umbrella of training academies who are approved, who then the training can only be done through these providers. Because same again, any other industry you look at, if you wanted to be a plumber, you've got to be gas safe. If you want to work on boilers, that is the level, the achievement you need to be able to do to be able to competently fix boilers and install them and stuff. So that's just one analogy. But if we're talking about aesthetics and training, we need to have a level, and then those training providers are the ones who answer to the Department of Health and Social Care. The people that are being trained, then we know the certification runs in line with the insurance, and then they go hand in hand. Because that's what we're doing at the minute on CosmediCheck. We are having to check every single document to ensure that we're getting the most information to prove it is an accredited certificate and insurance, and it takes so long to do.
I can imagine, and it's a lot of work.
And some training providers don't come back to us, so then we can't then acknowledge it because we haven't got confirmation of it. So I think the COVID era is now said and done, but the backlash of that is still well within the cosmetic sector, and I think that's the result of a lot of the bad press that still goes about in the papers, on social media. There's one organisation that are constantly trying to bash non-medics with this has been done by a non-medic, this has been done as a result. It happens from both sides of the fence, unfortunately.
It does.
And it's that level we need to achieve. But I really think from COVID onwards, any certification that hasn't been accredited, it needs to be looked at.
It does. So if anyone's watching this now and they're not already with CosmediCheck, what is the best way for them to come onto your program? Is it Instagram? Is it the website? What's the first step that they should take to
we're
get
on
on?
Our social platforms, so people can reach out to us with questions and stuff. The easiest thing is to go to CosmediCheck.com.
Okay.
You go to the homepage, and then in the top right hand corner there is a sign up, where as a client or patient you can create a free account there, and then you can browse through our accredited professionals. You can like them, you can favourite, you can book treatments and stuff or book consultations. As a professional, you then start an application process. So what that does is you fill in your business details, your personal details, you upload all your accreditation, and then once we've received all of that, our vetting teams will then start vetting your business and going through motions and back and forward with any additional information we need. And then from there on, hopefully.
Excellent. And it's about a week's time, more or less.
I mean, it does depend.
Variable.
Because we rely on third parties like insurance companies, certification companies.
But it's relatively quick. I thought that would be a lot longer. I thought that would take 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. I mean,
so you do get through that quite quickly.
Occasionally, but our guys are dedicated to trying to showcase as many trusted professionals as they can. So our guys are working on that.
Brilliant.
Any companies we partner with, we generally get those applications through a lot quicker because we get almost instant confirmation. But for me, it's a no-brainer to show that you take safety seriously. Yeah,
and then they can print off their certificates, pop them onto their walls in the clinic, shout about what it is they're doing. 100%. You know, I've gone through CosmediCheck. This is what it means. Educate their clients on how they've become safe. Massive green flags for clients that are walking through the doors.
Exactly that. And it gives people, professional and patient, more peace of mind than just a boosted post on social media, which is great for what it does, but it doesn't give you any background.
No.
And there are some other platforms about but they don't verify anything still. So you might have companies on there with 100 reviews, but none of them have been verified.
Yeah.
They haven't had any of their documents verified. So we're just trying to ensure that we're a safer industry as a whole for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think it's honestly absolutely amazing, the platform that you've managed to put together. And I think the fact that you've kind of started it so many years ago and you're still going with that is really, honestly amazing. And it is so good that people are coming into this industry with ethics to drive the business forward, to drive safe practice forward. So, yeah, really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Back in a Mill. We really hope that you enjoyed it. Of course, if you do have any questions that we've spoken about today, you can either come directly to ourselves or you can go on to CosmediCheck.com and they will also be able to help you. See you soon.